I want to talk a little bit about the opioid epidemic we have in this country. Everybody knows from watching the news that the opioid epidemic, I'm going to ask right now, forgive me if I mispronounce it, but the opioid epidemic has become a tremendous problem in this country. I'll be honest with you. I actually looked it up because I wasn't 100% sure of what was classified in that situation. Um, it seems like the past couple years that it has become an epidemic and has become in the mainstream media quite a bit. It seemed to me more like it was prescription drugs. And the problem was the prescribing of these drugs that got people addicted. To me, it was a simple solution. And if you watch all of my videos, you'll understand I believe in simplicity in solutions. And the solution is this. If we have the pharmacology companies quit making the stuff, therefore the doctors have no more to prescribe, we should fix the problem. Well, opioids does not just include the prescriptions. The main prescription opioid is Oxycontin, but it also includes heroin and is it fentanyl? Please forgive me if I mispronounce that, but I think fentanyl is how it's pronounced. Well, we all know heroin's been illegal forever. It was a big thing back in the 80s and 90s, but it's always been illegal, or at least for most of the 20th century. But something that I found out in my research was that fentanyl is over 50% of the opioid ODs is from fentanyl. And fentanyl is primarily imported through the illegal drug trade coming out of Mexico. So let's address this problem in a couple groups. First off, let's address the prescription side of it. I believe, yes, that if we force the drug manufacturers to stop producing these addictive drugs like this, the doctors will no longer have them to prescribe, and therefore we can put a dent on that side of the house. Now, I was at a Republican County committee meeting here back in January, and the sheriff gave his report on some things in the city council, and they both were talking about how they have done very well in fighting the epidemic here. Now, I'm going to say specifically this was in Portsmouth, Scioto County, Ohio. One of the hardest hit areas of Ohio with the problem. And that's what I asked. The first thing I got up when they asked me to get up and talk was I asked them, what is it that he felt could be used to fix it if we quit producing those things. And he made the comment, and yes, it is true. Some of them do have a benefit in certain cases. Me personally, I think what we need to do is encourage the drug manufacturers to come up with either a less addictive version of these painkillers or a non-addictive. I don't know if that would be possible, but I think that's a path that we need to look into. But the one thing that the drug manufacturers need to do, they have to do, is they have to quit making these highly addictive drugs like Oxycontin. And the doctors have to quit prescribing them. Now, I had somebody come up with the idea of holding doctors and drug manufacturers responsible for the over prescription of these drugs. I will concur with that. I believe, yes, if you have doctors that are over prescribing, and there's a way we can do that. The DEA, every doctor has a DEA number, certification number, because of prescribing narcotics and stuff like that. I believe maybe we need to go into a more supervised. How do we want to put this? A better tracking. One of the things that I read about in reading about the opioids is through the prescription side of them is some of these pill mills or these areas where doctors are over prescribing. They prescribe so many thousands a month. I think part of the situation of holding them accountable would be a means of tracking the number of patients they have with the number of prescriptions they give. Okay? I know just from my own medical stuff in the background, most prescriptions are usually a 30-day prescription. Okay? So if a doctor has 15 patients that he prescribes these drugs for, then every month there should be a 1 month supply of this medicine that is prescribed for the 15 patients. So there's a total number of prescriptions that are put out there. And a doctor who his number of prescriptions exceeds that needs to be investigated. Maybe that's a good way of starting to hold them accountable. The drugs, the drug manufacturers, the drug dealers, or drug dealers, yes. I'm not. Maybe. I hope that's a very short explanation of it. But yeah, that I think that right there would be the best way to do it. Is there's got to be a tracking way, a method. As for the illegal side of the house, heroin, fentanyl, the OxyContin and stuff is also done in some of these pill mills. They're illegal, and we need to work on that. Better law enforcement to do that, and that's something that we can do. If you go back and look at my budget plan and how I want to rebudget the government, balance the budget, I have a surplus. We've got to have money to do that with. We're $20 trillion in debt. We keep racking up more debt every year. We can't add money to the battle to fight opioids if we're still in a deficit every year. So we've got to balance the budget and get the extra money coming in like I have planned to do. And then we can take that money and adjust the budget to do that. And that's a restructuring of the federal government as well, where we add law enforcement personnel to the DEA and other organizations who are fighting this epidemic by having the money to afford to do that. Heroin, most of the heroin is produced in the United States. And again, that's a law enforcement thing right there. We need more law enforcement in order to help work on that. Setting up through the law enforcement in this country a better plan to fight against the illegal drug trade. And that's something that the DOJ needs to look into. When I get to Washington, that is something that I will work on. Is work with the Attorney General and FBI, the DEA, in helping develop a better law enforcement plan to weed out the illegal drug trade within the borders of the United States. Now, since fentanyl, which I didn't know, most of it that comes into the United States comes through the southern border. That right there is a perfect example of why we need the border wall. Okay? Everybody is associating the border security that President Trump is talking about strictly with illegal immigration. That is a main part of that wall, is the illegal immigration. But the other part is the illegal drug trade. And it's not just the opioids that come across the border. I mean, it's all the drugs. Coke, meth, crack, there's all kinds of stuff that comes across the border. Um, Shutting down the illegal immigration across the border, setting up a border security that prevents people from sneaking into the country illegally, will also shut down the illegal drug trade. And with the opioid epidemic the way it is, I believe that is an extremely important part of the border security. And that's being said, part of the border security, and I need to go back and relook at my immigration video, and I need to make a better one about the border wall. But the border security, I think what we need to do is we need to establish a relationship with Mexico itself. With the right workings, I believe we can get Mexico to help us secure the border and to work with us in our border security, because it's a benefit to them as well. The biggest problem with all of that right now is it is hurting Mexico's economy. You have the cartels and the other illegal aspect in Mexico that is starting to hurt their economy because of tourism. A lot of the big tourist places, Cancun, and stuff, places like that, they're starting to lose some tourist trade because of the hazards to tourists due to the cartel wars and just the drug trade and the other stuff in general. By showing Mexico how helping us secure the border, and maybe there's something that if they help us secure the border, then maybe we can help them in eliminating the cartels and the stuff that's causing their economic decline. It would be a good partnership between the two countries in doing this. And therefore, we would be able to put a huge dent in the opioid problem, and we could shut down the import of fentanyl into this country. So there's multiple reasons for some things being done. We need to look at that, and we need to look at how that can be done. Not just about immigration. Yes, immigration is a big problem. Illegal immigration is a big problem in this country. But now we have an even bigger problem, and that is the opioid epidemic. And now that I understand that a lot of that has to do with the border problems, then I think that should become a main cause in Congress. The Democrats are looking at things from an immigration aspect, and I don't hear anybody talking about the opioid problem and how the open border or the unsecured border we have is a major part of that. If you have any questions or comments on this video, please put them on there. I don't know if the way I have explained things in this video satisfies you, the watcher, the viewer, explains to you a position on it or whatever. If you have suggestions or if you have questions, please put them in the comments box. I'll answer all the questions that people put out there. But if you have suggestions, yes, I definitely like hearing people's recommendations, suggestions. Just because you're not in politics, just because you're not a business owner, you're not a millionaire, doesn't mean you don't have a good idea. A lot of the healthcare professionals and the law enforcement professionals who has to deal with this problem on a day-to-day basis, a lot of them have seen the problem and have come up with ideas that maybe needs to be researched in how to fix the problem. That's what Washington needs to hear. We need to hear the people on the ground dealing with it every day and what they come up with, because they're the experts. They're the ones that sit back and say, hey, dude, we need to do this to stop this problem. Talk to me. Tell me what you think. You help me get to Washington, and I'll take those suggestions to Washington. We'll start making Congress look at what you, the people that have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis, we'll make Congress listen to us.